So if you haven't been following the 3D printed saga, here's a quick recap so you know what's going on. Boom, New York comes out with laws. Bam, Virginia comes out with laws. Washington comes out with laws. Georgia comes out with laws. All these laws are to restrict 3D printing and what you can print. Then bam, California, they don't just come out with laws, they take active action. They actually go after my lawyer who lives in Florida, right? California, Florida, they're like, hey, because he's not actually putting files on the internet. The catalog is just a place you can go where there's links to all the files. Anyways, so they're like, even though your stuff's in Florida, even though you're not putting it out, we're going to sue you. They were talking about millions of dollars in lawsuits too. And this case is still ongoing. And that's what this video is about. Where are we at in this particular case? But before we get into that, quick word from our sponsor. That is Gotcha6app.com. If you like all the benefits from Life 360, like having rally points, knowing where people are in the event of emergency, but you don't feel comfortable sending your money to commie Florida so they can use that money to come and attack us, I totally understand. Or if you don't like being tracked 24/7, Gotcha6 app is the answer to this. You can have it, you can only have it track you in the event of an emergency. You hit the rally point button, everybody knows where you're at, so if you're trapped in your house and say Hurricane Katrina, hit that little rally point, hey guys, I'm trapped in my house. You can get the help you need. So go and check out that app. Now, understand this is Second Amendment friendly, so it's not for sale in app stores, obviously, because it's not allowed there. Nothing Second Amendment friendly is. So you have to actually go to the .com to download the app, but go download that app and check it out. My lawyer gets sued from California, which is insane. Like, essentially, California is trying to apply their 3D printed laws nationwide, and this is a test case. They picked this for two reasons. One, dude is literally on the other side of the country, so they can send a message that, hey, it doesn't matter where you live in the country, we will come after you if you put these files on the internet. It doesn't matter if you have a server in Switzerland, we'll come after you personally. We're basically pushing responsibility upstream. So instead of the person who downloads the file and breaks the law being in trouble, no, we're going to go to the next step higher. We're going to go to the person putting the file on the internet, and we're going to go after them. Basically trying to instill fear so people don't put gun files on the internet. Pretty ridiculous, right? You're like, oh, that sounds like it has some major First Amendment implications. And you're absolutely right. So they did a countersuit against California. They filed that this morning or last night. I'm not really sure. Anyways, here's the points. So they're trying to move this to the federal courthouse. Obviously, because the last thing they want to do is go to San Francisco and try to litigate saying that San Francisco doesn't know what the hell they're talking about because they're going to lose. Plain and simple. You go to the actual courthouse where they filed this in, the government is 100% going to win. The judges are all cherry-picked. They're put into power. They are put into power strictly to enforce the will of the government. They're going to lose. So, they're trying to move this to federal court, and it makes sense, because we're talking about California and Florida, two different states. Anytime something is crossing state lines, that puts it into federal jurisdiction. So what's realistically going to happen? First, let's talk about what's going to go on and what the suit's about. So, the first issue they raise is obviously First Amendment. They couldn't even put the examples of what was on the website in the filing because that filing can be looked at in California through PACER. They can't file any patents. They can't do anything right now because everything goes on the internet. So even fighting this case, they had to be very careful what they said because otherwise it creates criminal implications in California. That's pretty wild. And I think that's going to have a big impact on the court because they're going to be like, well, what's exactly on your website? And that's like, oh, we can't put what's on our website because if we did that, it would go on PACER, which puts it on the internet, which we just got basically sued from California for having these files on the internet. So if we tell you what these files are, they go on the internet, and then Californians could indict us. Now, I don't know how exactly that would work. Maybe when they'd show up to court for their civil suit, bam, there'd be officers there and they'd arrest them there on the spot because now they're in California jurisdiction and indict them there. I don't know. I'd be super terrified to go to California. That's just my opinion. So that's the first thing. Like, they can't even fight this case properly because of the implications of what California is doing. Next one's 14th Amendment, due process and fair notice. Now, I have something similar going on in my case, and I know that pretty well, so I'm going to talk in my case. I get So with their case, like, the problem is they didn't get any sort of notice that, hey, we might arrest you, well, not arrest you, we might sue you if you put these files on the internet, and these are the exact files we don't want on the internet. They never got any of that. To help you understand this a little bit better, I'm going to talk in my case because, like I said, I know my case. My case should have went to civil court. I should have got a cease and desist. Hey, the auto key card has machine gun implications. You need to stop putting this out. And I would have been like, oh, okay. And that would have been civilly. Then we would have went to civil court and they would have decided whether or not the auto key card is or is not a machine gun. Because there's no case law that says there is. There's actually case law that says there isn't. Plus there's several ATF opinion letters that also says there isn't. So at the time, the auto key card was definitely not a machine gun. So if they wanted to switch that, the proper way to do that would be take me to civil court, put it in front of the judge looks at all the information, all that. We would obviously file a TRO so they couldn't enforce any sort of lawsuits or anything like that on us while we go through the civil court. Should the civil court be like, boom, yes, the auto key card is a machine gun. Now, that is publicly known, and now that fair notice has been given, if I were to continue selling the auto key card, now criminal charges would be brought. That was the fair notice that was missing in my case. Theirs, it's because California never contacted them, because they're doing lawful acts. Just like with the auto key card, everything is lawful, everything is totally fine, everything is great. There's no reason for you to think any other ways. Like, there's no implication there. There's no, again, fair notice. Fair notice is what's missing here. That's when the game changes. So they're obviously going after the 14th Amendment. No due process, no fair notice. The next one is direct commerce clause. I've never actually dealt with this, so I don't fully understand what that is. But from what I was gathering from the court filings, something to do with California trying to regulate out-of-state stuff. And that's a commerce clause thing. Again, that's not something I deal with on this channel, so I don't really fully understand this one. But basically, regulating out-of-state speech. And how can they regulate the rest of the country when California is it? The whole point of having the different states is so if I live in California and I don't like the way the gun laws are, well, I can just move to Nevada or something like that. I can separate myself and I can live in a place that I like to live in. I can also influence governments. I can have little changes happen. We can set up how we want to live, right? California isn't Wisconsin. Wisconsin isn't Illinois. Each place has its own pros and cons, and you, as a responsible adult, pick out, okay, this is where I want to live and why, so I'm going to move there. Plain and simple, right? So if California is capable of enforcing their will nationwide, well, then we don't have the United States of America, we have California. That's it. Obviously, the last section is the Second Amendment. These are all protected firearms. All of it. Now, you can't just go after it, be like, okay, so we can't touch firearms because it's protected. We'll make ammunition illegal. Now you can't use the firearms. Essentially, we went after firearms. That's the whole point of this, right? So, that's why ammunition is protected, the information to build firearms is protected, and the ability to build firearms is also protected. Because you can't say that firearms are protected, but the precursors to getting a firearm are not. And we're going to regulate that, so therefore you can't get the end product. So they're saying, obviously, it's protected by the Second Amendment, which it is. The information itself is. So what are the likely outcomes? Best case scenario, we are looking at a big win. The judge says, all right, so nationwide, California is out of line here. They're operating out of pocket, right? Nationwide injunction on California, you can't enforce this law anywhere but in California. You have to stay there. And they could even go one step farther and just be like, that law is unconstitutional as a whole. Would they do that? Probably not. And I think that's why this case has a higher likelihood of success, because that's not what they're asking for in their lawsuit. They're asking just California stays inside their borders. Now, if they were asking for California's law itself to be labeled as unconstitutional, it would bring down the success level. So I believe that was a pretty good strategic move to only ask to limit California, right? So that would be the big win. The moderate win, the federal judge is like, you know what? The defendants named in this plaintiff, they're protected. But it's not a nationwide injunction. It's just for the plaintiffs. Or California sees this brought up at the federal level, and they just back off. Basically, they drop the lawsuit without admitting any wrongdoing or anything like that. They just drop the lawsuit and they continue to enforce it just in California. They leave the sleeping dog lie, right? So that's a moderate win. Still a win. The Plaintons still do get a win out of this, but it's not the best one. We are hoping for the big win, nationwide injunction. Now we have worst case scenarios. A couple of different things here. The federal court just declines it as a whole. Like, nope, we're not going to do this. This isn't something I want to touch. That's a state matter. You have to handle that in California. And the lawsuit moves forward, and they wind up taking it right up the butt. The next loss would be, so the court decides that we don't have jurisdiction on this. This needs to be handled in California. I think that's the 9th Circuit. So instead of the 11th Circuit, this needs to be handled in the 9th Circuit, which we all know what's going to happen there. The government's going to win, and then it's going to be, 10 years as it climbs up the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court steps in. Now, obviously, these decisions are appealable, and the appeal rate is pretty high, and should that happen, this would also be another reason why SCOTUS might do like an emergency step in. What do I think the statistical probabilities are? Well, just looking at this, we got a worst case scenario, a middle win, and a big win. This is already 2/3 it's going to win, so that's pretty good. Obviously, federal court is the way to go. These defendants do not want to go to California. Nobody wants to go to California and try to fight that out because they will lose. California court systems are literally there to rubber stamp communist and progressive agendas. That's why they're put into power. That's it. They know this from the beginning. Look, that's it. That's all we're doing. Anything you guys want, approved. Approved, 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 approved. That's what they're there to do. So, federal court is the way to go. I was asking AI what the percentage of win are. They said it's up around 70%, and that's on 3 different AIs, so that's pretty good. That's better than 50-50, right? We'll have to see how it all plays out, though. I will keep you posted. All right, so the next thing I want to bring to your attention is if you like to support the channel and you don't want to do the ad sponsor, another way to do it is shopping at OnlyTechFans@shop5.com where I have cool merchandise. So this is the CRS ammunition can. This is still a prototype. This is Gen 1. I got one more Gen 1 printing out. Then we're moving on to Gen 2. I'm going to change the snap style on the lid. It's going to move back here because this snaps, like this is a really good snap. It locks into place. Probably Gen 2 will be the last prototypes. And then we're going to move on to the actual like full production range style. The prototypes, I may also get rid of this rim. This rim here, right, so I can stack these if you want to buy multiple ones. Again, prototypes are almost done. We're almost done prototyping, and then we'll move on to the actual, like, this will work on the range. Materials will be changed. Obviously, it'll be more expensive for the actual range ones. So if you want to check these out, go to OnlyTechFans@shop5.com. Tourniquets are out of stock right now, but they're coming in. They should be in there shortly. Hopefully, like, within a day or two. I don't know when. Or I do have affiliate links in the description. Just go down there, click on that Amazon affiliate link. Even if you don't buy what that link is for, just clicking on it. Doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway. I don't kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.